Full spoilers ahead for Fargo Season 4, Episode 5, The Birthplace of Civilization. Major ending. It's tough. We're going to talk about it. As I said, full spoilers ahead. Before we do that, if you've not subbed to the channel and you're enjoying these Fargo reviews, please hit that sub button. It really helps out the channel. Hit the thumbs up, leave a comment. All those things help us. We have a lot of content on the channel besides the Fargo reviews. We have a lot of content on the way, so please hit that sub button. Larry, the ending. We're going to go right into this. Oh, I'm here with Larry and Spencer. I'm Brian. That ending, man. We were unable to do the show last night, but I called Larry and just to talk about the ending, and I knew it was going to be devastating to him. It's devastating to me. I completely understand why it was done, and I understand the chaos it will bring. Let's go into it. The death of Dr. Senator.
Because this was the show lighting the fuse. There had to be a big event that just kind of sets everything in motion and sets them off if there is going to be a full-on war. And I think it's the coolest head in either gang being killed. Especially by by someone who's been trying to pop things off since the beginning of the show. Dr. Senator dying. Yeah, that's a huge blow. I mean, he's Cannon's right-hand man for one. So from this point on, there's no way there can be any peace. But still feels a little too soon for Dr. Senator. But it is Fargo, and it's the type of show that it is. So I was pretty sure it was going to happen at some point.
I wasn't until it happened. That's not how I saw it going down. I saw it going the opposite, because at the beginning of the episode, with everybody getting arrested and stuff, I felt like the end of the episode was going to be the opposite. I felt when he walked out, I was expecting to hear gunshots or, see bullets flying, but not at Dr. Senator. I assumed that the people in the diner, whatever that diner is, were loyal to, Dr. Senator and Cannon and all them, and that they were just basically going to take care of the Clemente.
Calameda and Gaetano.
Yeah, Calamea. I figured that the people working in there were just going to take him out. And that's how I thought it was going to end. But when I saw him turn around, I was like, shit.
You and I thought the same thing at first. When he walked in there, but then when it looked like it was early and like she was the only one in the restaurant, I thought maybe him saying he wasn't going to have a coffee this time was perhaps a signal, and that she was going to call somebody.
Yeah, me too. I thought it was all like a ploy.
Right. Yeah, it's just when Calameda gave that speech and everything, and Dr. Senator gave his speech, my first thought, okay, well, both of these things are true. Things are going to get messy, like Dr. Senator said, and so it's going to take someone like him to clean it up. Except Calameda is also right that Dr. Senator is going to walk out of here, and he's going to die on the street, so he won't be there to clean it up. But you'll need someone like Dr. Senator. But so, I think that's a clear sign that things are going to get resolved in a very messy way at the end of the show. Like, it's going to be a bloodbath.
Let's also go into what led to this event occurring, because I know you appreciated this, Larry. You thought it was funny. It really kicked off with Gaetano getting a bad cup of coffee. I mean, not completely, but in a way,
that was fantastic.
Him and Calameda, I think I'm saying it right. They go to this restaurant, and they're plotting out what their next step is, because Josto had just used the police, to make moves. Josto thought that would be good enough, and Gaetano sort of reevaluating what he's going to do. And in the midst of that conversation, he gets served the coffee, and he snaps, and he goes on a bit of a killing spree, and his whole thoughts on female Jesus, or how he described it in America, and he had a lot of thoughts about Americans and the difference between Italians, and but he went on a killing spree. And at that moment, once he shot those two guys, I was like, oh shit, because that was one of the things we had been saying, whether or not Gaetano was all talk. And apparently up to that point he was, but no longer. He's now a danger. So when he was sitting in the back of that diner pouring, an insane amount of chocolate sauce on his ice cream sundae, I was
All
uneasy. I
super
didn't know what was
slow.
going to happen, but I was like, oh shit, this is a madman. What's he going to do? But but going back to the coffee thing, I mean, obviously, sort of a joke, but I've had bad coffee a couple times. And I thought, what the
Well,
hell?
well, yeah, and you know how I react to it. So, it's
I've seen Larry go lose his shit over a bad cup of
so
coffee.
I was like, okay, I get it a little bit. Like shooting them was a step too far, but it's I figured given the fact that Gaetano is a hothead, that I knew they were going to die in that scene when he got the coffee. Like, but yeah, I still feel he's a bit of a coward, and that's why he has Calmeda around. Or I know I just said that wrong too, but he has him around because he knows that he's willing to kill and that he does do it. That he's that guy who's trigger happy. You know, Gaetano, yeah, he did kill 2 people, but he didn't kill 2 mobsters. He killed 2 restaurant workers, 2 unarmed restaurant workers. He's trying to set things off because his brother just punked him, and he feels insecure about it.
Well, and I think you made a very good point with the insecurity. It all started with him getting laughed at. That guy, when he slipped and fell, I was dying laughing. Like, I rewound it and watched it a few times because he was singing and dancing. He was all super happy, and then he slipped and busted his ass.
Like, no, it's funny,
And
Charlie Chaplin.
yeah, so I think that, like you said, his pride was wounded starting right there. Then he goes inside, and I think he felt like the butt of the joke because he already got laughed at by this guy. And now he brought him out this like shitty cup of coffee, and he's just like, "Is this guy fucking with me?"
Right?
So I think it like compounded. I think it started with him falling on his ass, and it reminded me so much of Joe Pesci in Home Alone. Like, I couldn't stop laughing because he, like, the way his arms flew up behind him and everything. I was, like I said, I laughed, but I thought that it was about insecurities. He felt like this guy was just fucking with him and making fun of him.
Can we talk about how lightly everybody's taking the fact that pie was poisoned?
Yeah, right. Yeah, they're all aware. Like I thought they were still had maybe some doubts, but now they all seem to completely know that it's poisoned, and they're just like, "Huh, I think she poisoned the pie she gave us."
I mean, it's sort of, yet again, that sort of, dark humor Cohen thing, but I like that. That is crazy. I mean, at least he was warning Ethelrida. He's like, yeah, stay away from her. I think she poisoned the pie. But you would think
but
that
not even.
the other two, her aunt and her girlfriend or whatever, would have sought out revenge. They're the couple of outlaws, and they're pretty confident in the fact that pie was poisoned. I don't know. Yeah, the pie thing. I mean, clearly it's now being played for a gag, but yeah, that was funny.
That said, like every episode, the aunt seems like worse and worse of a person.
Yes.
I was about to say I don't know what her morals are, but I guess there are no morals.
Well, so let's talk about that. Let's jump into the outlaw speech. Live to well, I wrote it down, but I don't have that with me. It's like live while you're alive and die with a gun in your hand. It's something along those lines. That is the code they live by. I mean, they were trying to make it sound cool, but I was like, I wasn't digging it,
Right? Yeah, it's like they watched too many westerns and they're kind of excusing the crap that they did. Like, especially when the marshal list off what they were in jail for, and Ethelrida looks shocked, and he's, just their crimes were crappy. They were things bad people would do. They weren't just stealing money to survive or anything. Like what she beat up and killed a pregnant woman, I think he said.
That's what he said. Well, even keep in mind shooting up Cannon's place. They killed like 3 people in that.
Yeah, and thought nothing of it.
Yeah, and thought nothing of it.
Well, she said that the difference between what outlaws and criminals is that criminals always try to go legit, and outlaws are basically just like anarchists. Like
That was basically the vibe I was getting. More of yeah, exactly. Criminals still play within the system.
Mm-hmm.
where outlaws are just chaos, and you don't know what the hell they're gonna do.
Oh, it's very narcissistic thinking that what they're doing isn't for the benefit of anyone else, it's just for them. Whereas a criminal, they are trying to better themselves, they are trying to make a name for themselves. But just like I think that Cannon showed it, when he lost it on his wife, which I was laughing because she was giving him shit, and then the mom was giggling, and he was just like, "Where's my?" Mm-hmm. But that was more of a sling blade than it was a. But you know, talking about how he's doing this for his family. These people, they're none of these criminals are good people, but they had like
There's a
what's her
code.
name? Yeah, there's a code, and she basically was just like, "Fuck the code. I'm just doing whatever the hell I want."
I mean, at least the only positive thing I'll say about that scene is that she's upfront about who she is, so I'll give her that. And going to Loy, do you have anything else about the aunt before I get into Loy? Because I have a lot on Loy Cannon.
Well, no, just that she seems like a horrible person, and I mean, and I guess what I have to say about her does kind of segue to the Lloyd Cannon stuff, because clearly their storyline, Lloyd has plans, and I guess we'll see what that is.
So, Spencer, you talked about his, interaction with his wife. Harsh, but reality. I mean, this guy is explaining these things we have. We've made a decision to pursue this life
Mm-hmm.
for these things, and there's no getting off that roller coaster. You can't, you know what I mean? And like I said, it was a little harsh, but as I was listening to what he was saying, I was like, look, he's not wrong. Uh, he had a
No,
lot of truths throughout
well,
the episode,
well,
multiple
yeah, because
scenes.
he starts with, do you like being rich? He's like, this is how we're rich. This is how we become rich. He's like, this is the only way for us. Like, if you like these nice things, if you like being rich, if you like this, if you like that, he's like, the crimes I commit provide these. He's like, do you want to stop doing it? Do you want to stop having these things? And she didn't respond. So like apparently he had a point to some degree.
Well, and like you said, he's asking her. She was under some misconception that he was, running this
That he was like a
legal.
banker or something.
Yeah, he was. He wasn't running around to being a door-to-door like vacuum salesman or something. She knew exactly what he was doing. Same thing with the mother-in-law. She knew exactly what was going on. So like that was my favorite. Him going at his wife a little bit, kind of bringing her off the rails. I was on board with it. Maybe not that way, but he had to talk her down because she was just like, "No, this is what I'm doing." He's like, "No, you're not."
Well, yeah, and
And
that's one thing I was going to say
I
too.
was
It was also to protect her because she was going to go to that prison, and well, we see how much control his enemies have over that prison.
Yes, and these are things that he's trying to explain to her. Look, he is working on it. He knows these things, and her going there was not going to help the situation, and that's what he was trying to explain to her.
I think that also goes back to what I said in one of the previous reviews of mobsters, and you see it in all kinds of movies. You fuck with the family, they take it super personal, but she's not taking it personal when, they killed 3 people in that robbery earlier. She didn't give a shit that those guys died, or that, they've clearly, to get to where they are, they didn't just not kill people. There's probably a wake of a river of people who have died, whether it was the Irish gang or whoever. Cannon, to get power, had to take out some folks. So for her to act like her kids are the only kids that matter, that seems to be a trope in all like organized crime movies. Like, it's just, you fucked with my kid, and they're like, yeah, but I also fucked with these other 97 people and killed their family, and we were still able to bring peace. But because I hurt this kid, I'm not allowed to. So it's
And at that
family
they've
for
got
whatever
like
reason. Yeah.
they've got like what 4 or 5 kids or so. Like that's a long time as a family, knowing what he does and not considering how it might affect their family until now. So she was well aware. She was fine with it. She was fine with the activities that he was doing until it became a little too personal. So she's not really. It's not really a greater moral stance in any way for her to go for her to criticize him the way she did, because like you mentioned, she seemed to be totally fine with it until then and there when their son got arrested.
And he was also pointing out, that shit could have happened regardless of who them being the Cannon family. It's a young African American man at a club hanging out, and a bunch of cops decided to come in and be assholes.
And at that, he's underage, and so
yeah.
So here's the thing: he probably wouldn't have got out if Cannon wasn't as connected as he was.
Yeah, I imagine that. Loy said it. He was just like, that motherfucker would have went to jail anyway. He's someplace he shouldn't have been. Yeah. So with the connection he had, regardless of who the son was, he still could have gotten in just as much trouble anyway, had they decided to raid that club. Like, he still would have gone to jail. So Loy makes a good point saying, he chose that. He fucked up. He said, now I'm going to try and fix it.
You said your favorite, you were talking about that scene as being your favorite. Like, there's so much that was said in this episode that was great, especially by Chris Rock. But my God, get the boy a piece of cake had me fall out of my damn chair. That is the greatest line. I want a shirt that says that shit with him, with Loy Cannon on it, and the little kid looking up, all sad, and he's like, "Get the boy a piece of cake." That's such a. I mean,
that whole sequence.
Whole sequence was golden.
Well, he seemed to really be enjoying that cake.
Dude, that kid loved that cake so much, and the look he gave Loy, when the cake was coming, like they did it. I love the way it was shot. It goes to her actually getting up and having to cut it, panning to the little kid, which the anticipation. He knows that shit's coming. He sees it from a distance. He's like, shit, is that chocolate cake? He's gauging what kind of cake he's about to get, and the look on his face. They tell the story beautifully. It's a great scene. It's funny, and that whole sequence as a whole is dead serious, which is why you needed that little comedy bit in there. Amazing storytelling. I yet again even though it was harsh, I can't be mad at what Loy said throughout that sequence in terms of, you guys screwed me, therefore I own this shit now, and you just hope I don't kill you and that I continue to use you.
Right. Well, and that's the thing here. Lloyd, he never wanted them to pay him back. Like I feel like it's a goal to begin with. Like, he realized when he ran the numbers, when he decided to give him the loan, that they were never going to be able to pay him back. That he just wanted to own that funeral home. That would be another source of revenue for him. So when they messed up in this way, like, he knows them well enough, I think, to know there was no intentional slight. It's just, this is a thing he wanted, so he took it.
Well, I also think that any kind of loan sharking, which is clearly what he's running, and betting services, you can't. That's the risk that you run. I mean, shit. In the United States now, it's those cash advance places. That's basically just legal loan sharking. It's here, sign over the title to your car, and we'll give you $6,000. When you pay it back, you can have your title back. However, we're going to charge you 27% interest. Compounding.
Yeah, we need 30,000. We'll give you 6, but we need 30.
Yeah, so it's what Loy was doing. I don't think his intent was to get the funeral home, but I think that he's making the best of the situation. And he's not a good guy. I think he is a I don't know how to say, like, honorable, because it's not really honorable. It's more like a very strict code, but as a gangster, he can't let them get away with something by not paying him, basically robbing him to pay him. And he realized very quickly that the gentleman didn't intend for that to be what happened. But if he figured it out that quickly, so would a lot of other people. So he can't just let that go.
Well, I mean, that's internal though. And he knows that, like, and that wouldn't come out to his enemies or anything. He got his money back it is his own money. He could have easily said, "You owe me double now," or something. Or
then he lost the money. Remember, Otis took it. the dirty cop.
That's true.
Not
That's
that
true.
it plays into that.
I would say, but did that happen
story,
beforehand or after? I
it
can't
was
recall.
before he went and told. Before he
Okay.
went and cleaned the funeral home, but he had already figured it out. He already knew.
Well, that may explain some things then, because he may have been pissed from that moment on, and just not ready to take his. It may have been the sort of thing where he's like, "Look, I know you people. I know you're good people. Um, I'm willing to forgive you. Who took my money? If someone gave you my money, who took it?"
Before the cops show up, he's walking through his place, and he basically, I think it was that scene, he basically says to one of his guys, he knows about the funeral home thing. He straight up says, if they don't give up the aunt, I'm going to kill them.
Yeah.
There's a quick line. So he's already made up his mind. As long as they give up the aunt and they seem, like they'll play ball and they'll be loyal, he'll use them. But I think he legit was willing to kill them at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, probably.
Well, and that goes back to look at all the, mob movies or even like real life shit. When you look at like the Gaudis and everything else, 9 times out of 10, when someone takes over, it's from a coup from within. It's not. So when we're talking about where you're like, other people won't know, the other people don't have to know. If someone feels like they could take over his organization from within because he's feeling weak, like if Dr. Senator, before, he get shot, if he felt like for whatever reason, Loy's not doing what he needs to do to get things done, he steps up, just like Gaetano's doing now with the Italians.
Well, I'm just saying,
Josto out to be a bitch.
Well, I'm saying there's no signs of that kind of problem in his organization, and there's no one like checking Lloyd right now. And
no, but
it really wouldn't make him look weak. Yeah, exactly, because he's that vicious. And he did make the point by giving the speech about his son and everything. And you may have a point in that, Spencer, like his motivation, his thoughts may be, if I'm this on the outside, if this is who I appear to be all the time, then no one will ever check me, which is why he gives him that speech. What makes you think this is my son? He's like, I traded my son for power. If he appears to be that cold all the time, you may be right. Yeah.
I sleep like a baby.
Yeah.
Going to yet again continuing Chris Rock, because he was prominent throughout the episode, and his amazing little speech or explanation about Otis, the dirty cop, and then we get more in that later. I loved his take on it, and then I love we get the actual backstory. So 2 great scenes that did a great job of not only explaining who that character is, but also showing how vast. Loy is very smart, and it shows that he wants to know everything. So the fact that he sees this cop, he knows his whole backstory. He knows exactly who he is. He's well aware that I think the Fadas have him on the payroll. He knows his enemies. He's someone who's prepared, and that backstory being that he was a minesweeper in the war, and the fact that he at one point didn't do his job and it cost somebody to get hurt or killed, and then we find out later why that happened. It had to do with his fiance finding out that she was murdered. So yeah, as far as that scene, and then just any thoughts on where Otis' story is going to go?
I think he's going to die, clearly, but I don't think he's going to end up changing who he works for. I think what ends up going to happen is that he seems to be very, not only just hard on himself. You look at what happened when, he's like, boom, and, Loy's fucking with him. That shook him pretty hard. And I think that, the reason he got into law enforcement probably originally was to, make things right and avenge his fiance that got murdered. That's the reason he did what he did. However, I think that he's getting to the point where he can't live with himself and the decisions he's making. I don't know if he's going to be his own undoing, or just when things go to shit, he's just going to stop fighting. And that's the route I personally think he's going to end up taking.
Well, and I think as his first salvo, Lloyd may Lloyd, he might be the first person that Lloyd takes out because he was the last person that crossed him directly in this episode. Like with the exception of Calmeda. So it'll either be him or him, but I feel like Lloyd's gonna kill him or have him killed, just because he had the goal to take his money and disrespect him to his face, knowing who he was.
I could see that. I could see that happening and that escalating it to Defi, because not Josto. I don't would
not
Josto,
that much of a
shit.
Yeah, Defi.
But Defi, that would pull Defi in a big way if he got killed, because Defi is clearly figuring shit out, and it did not help situations that the aunt was taken by the cannons, because now Defi saw that, so he's starting to piece together all this shit that's happening, and now he's involved, and that's what's so crazy about the show. Every character and every layer keeps weaving in, and all joining into one giant, crazy story.
Well, yeah, and it's just like, and that may be a thing, because he needs someone that can maybe come at him without him directly doing it. So that would be a good reason to recruit them in some way, especially given what he says he wants to use them for.
I think it was really smart to do it. I don't think he realized that Defi was going to be there at that point, and that could trigger a whole other problem for him down the line. As far as Cannon's decision making in the episode, I thought it all made complete sense.
Well, yeah, I think he's going to be onto him, but here's the thing: is Defi the marshal?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Timothy Oliphant.
Yeah, the other guy his partner is going to get killed. Well, they're not really partners, but the dirty cop is going to die.
Yeah, Otis.
Otis will die. Defi will know what happened. Oh, Defi will piece it together because he's seeing what he's seeing. And now that sort of becomes his case. Not only tracking these two characters, but also getting involved with this whole gang war and what's going on with Cannon, because now they're a part of it. I feel Otis will die, and I feel part of Otis's his plot line here really just kind of drags Defi into it, much in the way you were saying.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I'm curious as to Defi's role, if not what you just said, because I can't think of another reason for him to be prominent, because he doesn't seem to be too interested in either of the gangs, to tell you the truth. He seems to be more interested in why Otis is a dirty cop. Like, he seems to be, that has been his focus since the sisters, or the sister and Swanee. Since that kind of went off the rails, he's been focusing on the dirty cop as opposed to focusing on his original reason for even being there. So like you said, I think that him focusing so hard,
but that ties him directly to Josto. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. It's going to draw him in because, Otis.
And now those two things will be tied together in a way. The fact that he was kind of investigating Otis a little bit and looking into him on the sly, and with Otis's potential death happening, and with his original targets being involved in some way, that just kind of pieces together his storyline.
Ethelrida, it's her 17th birthday. That cake was intended for her. I guess there's still some left, so maybe she'll get a piece. We talked earlier about her going to see her aunt and getting the whole outlaw speech. But the main storyline with her this episode is basically her trying to decide on what to do about Mrs. Mayflower. Mrs. Mayflower didn't have any prominence in this episode outside of the opening scene she was in, showing just how crazy she is, and the setup of Ethelrida writing a letter to warn the hospital director about her.
I wanted to know what the fuck was wrong with those guys' knees. Holy shit.
So
it's like, what did he do?
There was like I said, this was a heavy Cannon episode, so they dialed back the Mayflower stuff, but we did get the Ethelrida trying to figure out what to do. She knows now that something's off, and that she's a killer. Like she seemed from based on the letter, she's pretty clear now that yeah, she's killing people. So where does that go? Is she going to try and take her down? How the hell is Mayflower is hooking up with Josto Fada, so she's tied into the whole mob plot line now. Her and Ethelrida are intertwined. Now Ethelrida is essentially working for Cannon because it's crystal clear now that the funeral home is his, and therefore the family serves him. So how is all this shit going to play out?
That's a good question. I'm not 100% sure. I think that Ethelrida may be one of the few people that.
Do you agree that Ethelrida's that Cannon's gonna use her? She's 17 now. She's part of the family. He owns the funeral home. He'll
100%.
tie her into.
Absolutely. Just also given how smart she is and everything, she'll play a big part in this.
Yeah, because there was a couple times where she just started speaking, and it was like, God damn. But I think that may play in too, because Loy may figure out how dumb as shit the dad is, and may use Ethelrida and Debril, the mom, because she's super smart. And he also mentioned that Swanee and I don't remember, it's like Zamaria or Zelmira or something, the aunt, that he needs invisible soldiers. So he may use Debril and Ethelrida and I'm not sure for what yet, but I think that he's going to try and use them. I think the dad might be, the.
Well, I'm pretty sure he's aware of how dumb he is, and that's probably why he probably approached him for the loan in the first place, instead of the mom, but yeah, I think what we might be watching, especially given the first episode of the show, where we see, we get an idea of how unfairly Ethelrida is treated at school and everything, and how, regardless of her going about things, the way that society expects people to go about their lives and doing the right thing and making good grades and being smart and etc., she still gets stepped on in a lot of ways just because of who she is. So what we may be watching here, especially like you said, her family being brought into Lloyd's crime structure, what we may be looking at is more Ethelrida's willing descent into crime because, just going about her life as it is right now isn't paying off for her. She's threatened at every turn. She's always getting beat at school. She had a U.S. Marshal come in and just threaten to destroy her academic career. Her world is so fragile that, just the tiniest thing could destroy it.
Well, I'm going to make a Wire reference, Larry, that I won't give too much away as far as characters go, but one of the seasons, I think it's the fourth season, that revolves around the school. Brian, is it fourth or third?
I can't remember.
I know but they revolve it around a bunch of young kids.
There's a school season.
But that happens to several of the characters. One of them who you think is going to do great and rise above, he goes into crime because he's got to support his little brother.
That's a storyline in which you're basically. I didn't even think of that. That's a great analogy, because basically you have a character and you see that character go from just being a school student and you build them to being the next big thing as far as the world of crime. And so you basically get to go on that journey and see it from the inception. So are you saying that Ethelrida is going to be a major player of crime boss or something major later, and that we're seeing that journey?
Yeah, that we're seeing Ethelrida on her way to.
Said it.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of felt that from the beginning a little bit, but there was nothing behind it. But I feel like what's happening, in the story is kind of almost an affirmation of that, and her talks with different individuals, about morality and things, whether it's her parents or the aunt and everything, their whole outlaw philosophy, and we'll probably get a scene where she's personally dealing with Loy Cannon, and she kind of pieces the best route for her together, because she said it early on. It was a question she asked after a long period of silence in an episode, and I think it's something that we'll see play out when she was sitting and talking with her father. She's like, "What what will become of me? What's in the future for me? And I think that's a question we'll at least have answered by the end of this season.
Yeah, and I even like the scene where she's asked, "Well, what are you? Who are you?" And she just states her name, and
And
I'm
she
one of
said,
a kind.
and I'm one of a kind.
So yeah, I thought that was a great scene. She's clearly, as you said, she's the one who introduces us to this storyline. She's telling us the story of these families, and the problem. Like, she's aware of what works, what doesn't work. She's aware of Mayflower's, what she's up to. So she does seem to be aware of all the players and all the things happening. And you're right. What is she going to do with this information? She's probably going to be put in a situation very soon by Cannon, as far as getting her hands dirty, if you will. So yeah, how's she going to navigate those waters? That'll be very interesting in the next several episodes.
Well, yeah, and here's the thing too. Like, she may incidentally, well, because it's theirs now, and Cannon may be running part of his operation out of the funeral home. She may just offhandedly give a little bit of advice, and she's very well educated. She's read a lot about the world. She has a interesting perspective on things, and this is at a time where Lloyd Cannon is missing Dr. Senator in his crew. There is no Dr. Senator right now, so.
She may take that smart, level-headed sidekick role.
Well, yeah, he may confide in her a little about some things. As far as advice, just trying to figure out, next steps and things. Maybe not directly, but indirectly, and a little bit of who he is and how he has power and why he's safe and why he doesn't have the struggles that her family has. That's she'll take that in, and that's probably going to lead to us having a very different Ethelrida, towards the end of the series.
Well, I was thinking too, I don't think that he was trying to hide his base of operations. When the cops raided it, he didn't seem surprised to see them there at first. But he may switch to the funeral home, because I don't think that the Italians are aware that they are doing business together. However, I think that's going to be the reason that Mayflower becomes important too, because she knows that they're there. She'll be able to see them. So I think that that's her living across the street I think that street is going to end up being where the finale is.
Yeah.
Whether everybody gets shot up there or whatever, I think that's where it's going to happen. She's going to play a role in that. I think that's where the culmination of everything's going to happen, is right there on that street.
Everything Josto has done has failed miserably. He's become a joke in terms of the storyline, as far as everyone seems to have a legit angle and know what they're doing except him. He's blind to all of his enemies. Rabbi tries to tell him, you have to kill Gaetano. He's very clear about it, and yet he doesn't do it. I'm shocked. I'll be shocked if he lives much longer. But then again, maybe he will, because it'll fuel the war that's brewing between him and his brother. What did you think about Josto in this episode? He gave his little speech at the jailhouse, as far as his reason why they should basically surrender to him. He's approaching everything wrong, and yeah, what do you have to say about that?
Well, we don't 100% know that he's approaching everything wrong, because we don't know how he's going to handle his brother, and I think very much things are going to go very much like Rabbi Mulligan said, and whether he heeds what he said and just kind of prepares for it or has a plan for his brother. We'll find out, and that'll really decide, in my mind, whether he's outright failed at everything he's tried to do. Because the main thing undermining him is his brother and Calmeda. Those are the big problems. If he's prepared for that, which we haven't had a hint at yet, because we didn't really get to see his thoughts on the matter or what he's going to do. We just got a moment of silence after Rabbi Mulligan.
Do you think that now, after the ending with the death of Dr. Senator, Do you think Loy even cares any about as far as what Josto does? Even if Josto offers Gaetano's head on a platter, do you think Loy is going to give a shit? He's going to.
Oh no.
And that's a legit question. Do you think Loy is going to say, "Screw the Italian gang, I'm going after them regardless"?
Yeah, there is no peace now.
Theory.
Okay.
I think that, remember, he sent for someone to go get the Italians from New York.
So that's I have that in my notes. We have the Italians from New York. We have potentially Gaetano bringing Italians from Italy. And then remember, Loy just made a deal with a gang out of Fargo. So we have 3 major factions potentially coming in.
Well, and I think that Josto is going to try and team up with Loy, because I think Gaetano is going to get the family from New York and he's going to try and run shit. And Josto is going to be like, no, this is my family. And instead of killing Gaetano, I think that he is going to try and get Loy to team up with him to take out Gaetano. Now, whether or not, because I think that Loy is trying to legit do business. Like, he is trying to do business.
He was.
He is trying to do it like a gangster. He's not now, because, once Dr. Senator died, that's all out the window. However, he may see Josto as like a way in, to kind of subterfuge them. But I think at the end, I don't know who else is going to live at this point.
Also,
it's going to be very much all the people are going
to die. Quick, one of our viewers left a comment last week informing us that there's in fact 11 episodes. I kept saying 10. I thought it was 10. So there's 11 episodes. So we still have 6 more episodes. So
that that on the IMDb that there's 41 total. This season, for whatever reason, has 11.
So we have 6 episodes. So clearly, there's going to have to be, that's essentially 6 hours left of the story. So it's not going to wrap up in a week or 2. So there has to be something else. I agree.
I think it goes all the way through the end of November. The 29th, I think, is the last episode. According to IMDb. That's what I looked at the other night. But this is the midway point, and Dr. Senator died. So what war plans are they going to start making? Is the Fargo gang going to be here next episode? Maybe, because you said that when they released it, when they talked about it, that it was episode 7 was the big episode. Like, that's
7
when
or 8
changes.
Can't remember. It's one of the it's before the end. Yeah.
So the next one is 6. So I think that's going to set everything into motion as to who's siding with who, and then the big war is going to break out. But I still think that, in all honesty, I don't know that by the end of this season that it's going to be Loy and his gang versus the Italians. I still wholeheartedly believe that Mayflower's crazy ass is working with somebody, and that it's going to end up being either the Irish come back. And I still think it's the Irish. For whatever reason, I don't know why, but I think that the Irish are going to come back for some reason. I think the way they went out, it seemed too abrupt. And I think that they're going to be the main opposition to Loy at the end of this. I don't really have a whole lot of breadcrumbs to lead to that other than Mayflower, but I wholeheartedly believe that's what's going to happen.
Well, and you make a good point, because chances are they have connections to other Irish gangs in other cities, and the Italians just outright betrayed them and took out an entire faction of the Irish gang, if not the whole thing. So
Chicago's not that far from Kansas City, and Chicago back in the day had a bunch of Irish gangs.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
The Irish and the Italians were warring a lot in Chicago. And the Midwest had a lot of Irish gangs for whatever reason. I don't know how or why, but
Rabbi, I think he's going to try and do the right thing, but it's going to get him killed. I think that's his story arc. In other words, I think he'll do the right thing and he'll still get sort of killed for it, but he may even be aware that that's where his end will be. In other words, I think he may finally get Cannon's son to him, and then Cannon will shoot him in the head or whatever. Do you agree that that's where his story is headed, or do you think there's going to be another element to what his story is? I don't know.
Well, yeah, it's hard to say, but there's a good chance of that. Either way, I feel like Rabbi's ready for it. He's the character that always seems the most tired.
Yes, he's
Like he seems like he's just ready for it. Yeah,
it's just like, yeah, I agree. Like, yeah. Well, what else does he? Because you look at what is there for him to do. You know what I mean? Like literally. Well, no, like you pointed out many times. Because he's known as a traitor, no one's really ever going to trust him. So he can't go to another group. And you just pointed, Spencer. Yeah, there are other Irish kings out there, and I would assume that his name is on a list. So, yeah. What is a character like him? Where does it end for them?
right. Yeah, it's hard to say other than what you said. Like, because that's my theory. He's going to try to do the right thing. He's going to die for it. Or, I mean, it's either that or he, stays loyal and tries to prove that, he can be loyal, and he dies for that reason. Either way, I don't see him surviving this series.
Let's play a quick little game. Who survives? Who do you think survives?
Irish mob in.
I think Ethelrida survives.
I agree. I think so.
Her mother might die.
Ooh. What about Deffy? You think Deffy dies? The marshal?
Deffy's kind of an asshole, so I kind of hope he dies. So I feel I'm a little too biased to make that decision.
Do you think Loy Cannon dies?
Probably.
Yeah.
But what do you think, Spencer? I think he's mute. Oh, you go ahead.
No, I was talking. I was gonna say I didn't have it muted. I just figured you were talking over top of me. No, I don't. With Loy, I think that his is going to be that one at the end, because even Josto said it. You end up rooting for the bad guy in the story. You're not rooting for the victim or stuff like this. You're rooting for the guy with the gun. So I think that although we're rooting for Loy at this point, I don't think that he's going to make it out at the end. I think Ethelrida is about the only character who I think has a higher chance of surviving. Everyone else is up in the air for me. I don't know that there's going to be a whole lot that make it by the end. Maybe Rabbi Mulligan. So I think maybe 2 out of all the main characters might make it. And those are the only 2 that I even have the slightest inclination that they might see the end.
I think Josto is going to die. Oddly enough, I think there's a chance that Gaetano might live.
That'd be crazy.
He might run back to Italy or some bullshit.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. He'll run back to Italy and he'll be telling these stories about, how he set things off in America and why you shouldn't cross him because of what he did in America when he got there. He'll go back to a different part of Italy. And
does it annoy you that he carries his knife the way he does, Larry?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
like a kid who's having a knife.
That's one last question, then we could talk about if there's anything else y'all want. Supernatural elements. We got them a week ago. We got none this episode that I could tell. The show does that occasionally. They'll introduce something. They'll play with it a little bit. Sometimes they get really into it and it becomes a major part of the story. You never really know. Does supernatural elements come in a big way in this season, do you think?
You'll probably see the same guy appear that we saw in those previous episodes, the one that seems to represent death. Like you might see him in the background if you look carefully, or you may see him, or they may put emphasis on the character towards the end, probably before everything just really pops off.
Yeah, I don't know 100% whether it's going to be something that matters or if it's just something that's going to be present. I think that it's just kind of one of those. He's he symbolizes death, and we'll probably see him several more times. But I don't think that there's really a supernatural element to it. I don't think that we're going to see him like flying down, swooping somebody up, and their soul's going to jump out of their chest and they're just going to faint. I think that it's going to be more of a symbolic type supernatural thing as opposed to full blown demon death walking around snatching people's bodies up.
I'm sorry, I'm just imagining the scene playing out that way. Like, who is this guy? I think he's working for Lloyd.
Yeah.
Just completely ruined the series.
I've basically gone through all the major notes, but I want to say one last thing and then leave it open if you guys have anything else to add. To me, Chris Rock killed it in this episode. I mean, all of his dialogue, I loved it. I ended up watching the episode a second time because of some of the lines. I was laughing so hard. So yeah, I didn't know if y'all guys agreed. If I was just in a Chris Rock mood.
Oh yeah, he killed it.
Yeah. I don't know that there's anything other than else to say about that. I mean, he did such a good job, and Chris Rock has this. Reputation. That's where I was looking for. Reputation of having these, comedic movies and stuff. But I love to see him in something like this because to me, although some of the stuff he says is funny, he does such a good job of playing a, harder, dramatic, straight character that I am very impressed with. I'm more curious as to why he didn't get more roles like this previous in his career because he does such a good job. Maybe it's because he was known for his comedy that it was harder for him to land roles like this, but I think he's done an amazing job.
It is pretty incredible, and I definitely want to see Chris Rock in more serious roles from here on out, just because of how well he did with this one. I was very surprised. I wasn't sure whether he'd be able to pull it off, but it's
New Jack City, dude.
I was looking. This is not a Chris Rock related thing. This is a Irish gang related thing. I was just looking at Irish mob and stuff, and like the 30s through the 50s, they were through like Minneapolis, Detroit, where else? Chicago was big, all the way up through the Midwest, Cleveland. Where's the other big? Omaha, which is just south of Kansas City, and Rock Island, which is in central Illinois, which is right around the corner. Rock Island's between Iowa and Illinois, so it's just north of here. So there's a lot of Irish gangs,
Like,
southern Illinois, all around where they're at.
So you have to chill about the Irish gang thing. They're still a thing, dude.
Well, I know. I'm just saying it's on Wikipedia.
I'm just joking.
Doing it.
I'm just messing with you.
But it just talks about them. It talks about.
But they are.
Yeah. Well, so's the Italian.
Oh, yeah.
All the gangs and organized crime still exists. This isn't like a new thing. I mean, hell, Stringer Bell and all them in The Wire. Like those were the more realistic current day Loy Cannons. So, yeah, it still all exists. I'm just saying that
I love me some Loy Cannon, but Stringer Bell's on another level, sir.
Stringer Bell is.
Love me some Stringer Bell.
I do. Yeah.
So badass. Larry, if you'll ever watch it.
One of these days.
So I'm just saying that as far as proximity to where they're at, when I was talking about the Irish gang coming in and kind of basically probably killing all of them, which is how I think it'll end.
Yeah, because I don't know. I don't know a whole lot about as far as Irish gang history in the U.S. I've seen outside of a couple movies. Usually they're set. There's a couple.
Yeah, it's all about
one from the 80s. I can't remember the name of it. There was one in the 80s about an Irish gang. Italians, they sort of cornered the market on Irish gang. I mean, not Irish gang, but on gangster films.
But you look at the one that just came out, the Shit, the one with Johnny Depp is Whitey Ford.
Yeah.
Like that whole. I'm trying to remember the name of that one. That one just came out recently, but that was a big one. And that was, Irish, Boston area.
Yeah, matter of fact, because he got killed recently.
Yeah.
Because and I want to say it was a guy. Yeah, it was a whole story. Yeah, you can look that up. Anyone who's listening. But anything else as far as
Black Mass was the name of the movie.
Yeah. Anything else as far as this episode of Fargo?
No, just loved it.
Yeah, I think that pretty much covers it.
Awesome. So yeah, like I said at the beginning, if you haven't subbed to the channel and you're still listening, you enjoy these Fargo reviews, please hit the sub button. It really helps the channel. Like I said, lots of content on the channel. We got our Lovecraft Country season finale. I laugh because we didn't love it. You can go listen to our opinions. I think we do a good job of explaining our feelings and why we had them. If you disagree, leave a comment. Let us know. Let us know what you think. We have a lot of content on the way. Next week, 2 new shows. The Undoing on Sunday evening, replacing the Lovecraft Country slot. And then next, I think we'll definitely try and get it up on Fridays. We haven't had that conversation, but The Mandalorian starts next week, and we will be covering it every single week as it runs. And of course, like I said, we'll be doing Fargo as it runs. Now knowing there's 11 episodes, that's exciting. 1 extra week that we didn't know about. So, yeah, appreciate everybody listening, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.